Number 10. The Washington Flap. July 19, 1952, air traffic controller at Washington National Airport spots 7 slow-moving objects on his radar, a fleet of flying saucers. 2 F-94 interceptor jets take off and become scrambled as each of them approached, radar included. 7 days later, the UFOs are back over the nation's capital as 2 more jets scramble trying to chase it down. One of the pilots sees a bright light in the distance and decides to give it a chase. Quote, "I tried to make contact with the bogies below 1,000 feet. I saw several bright lights. I was at max speed, but even then I had no closing speed. I ceased chasing them because I saw no chance of overtaking them at all." Newspaper headlines around the US scream, quote, "Saucers swarm over Capitol," and quote, "Jets chase DC sky ghosts." Probably not a good idea to just fly over the Capitol without saying hello first. Number 9. Roswell. The birth of the UAP phenomenon. Post-Cold War, 1945, the US's first nuclear explosion. 1946, the first underwater nuclear explosion. 1947, the first crashed flying saucer. Local rancher Mac Brazel finds the wreckage on his property in Lincoln County, New Mexico. Sheriff Wilcox shows RAAF's commanding officer Colonel Blanchard the materials, and during the night, the Air Force combs the entirety of the property, apparently harboring 2 small injured alien bodies. Taking them then to Kirkland Air Force Base, New Mexico that night, the very next morning, the Roswell Air Force makes a statement claiming that they have recovered a crashed flying disc in local newspapers. Boom! History, baby! A photograph of Jesse Marcel, the head intelligence officer who investigated and recovered some of the debris. The very next day, the Army retracts their statement, however, and all of a sudden, a high-altitude weather balloon, aka the birth of the conspiracy theory. Nuclear fission explosions, weather balloons. Something's not adding up here. Number 8. Betty and Barney Hill. The first real documented UAP abduction case in history. Betty and Barney Hill, married couple, New Hampshire, were driving home one night from a 3-day honeymoon when a light started following them in the sky. Pulling over after minutes of tailing, Barney got out of the car and gazed into the sky. From this moment on, the couple say 2 hours were lost. Betty's dress ripped, Barney's shoes scuffled, and both their watches 2 hours behind. Thinking nothing of it, they both reached home confused, and after weeks of no sleep, the couple reached out to a psychic researcher who could help them, and under hypnosis, the couple made some terrifying claims. They both, on separate occasions, claimed that they were separately walked into a large metal disc by small gray beings, and continued to operate and experiment on the couple on board. Blood taken, bodies examined, and both of them downloaded an understanding of a star system called Zeta Reticuli. The Hills stuck to their story for the remainder of their lives and remains one of the first and crucial American accounts of alien abduction. Number 7. Area 51. This secret base in the Nevada desert acts as the US's military hub for spatial engineering, maybe even some reverse engineering. The area is named after the geological grid of the desert. Groom Lake, Dreamland, this place has tons of nicknames. The area gained notoriety in the early 90s when numerous claims that workers had worked on alien aircraft and even heard of harboring alien creatures underground. The entire premises is fenced off with signs saying "No photography allowed. Use of deadly force is authorized." That can't be good. Whatever they're hiding here, it's mostly military. The base has been a testing facility for the Air Force and remains one of the most highly secured and secretive bases in America. Remember the 2019 Storm Area 51 movement? Yeah, no one got him. Even the famous Bob Lazar has claimed he was an employee here. What do you think? Number 6. Travis Walton. The horrifying abduction of local Arizona forester Travis Walton. Some of us know the name from the movie Fire in the Sky, based on this exact case and filmed in 1993. On November 5th, 1975, Walton and a number of others from the logging crew were working with timber in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest. While riding in a truck with 6 of his coworkers, they allegedly encountered a saucer-shaped object hovering about 100 feet away, making a high-pitched buzz. Walton exited the truck and ran over curious. A beam of light then appeared from the craft and blasted him unconscious. The other 6 men were terrified and drove away before returning moments later in a panic to a now vanished Travis. Walton claims that he woke up in a hospital room observed by 3 short bald creatures. He fought with them until a more human-looking figure led him down another room where he then blacked out. Walton claimed that he remembers nothing else until he found himself awake, walking alone a highway 5 days later naked, clueless of what had just happened. It's terrifying. Number 5. Rendlesham Forest. The Roswell of the UK. Boxing Day. 1980. The forest lays between the military bases of Bentwaters and Woodbridge. 3 a.m., two military personnel, John Burroughs and Jim Peniston, respond to bright lights in the forest. The radios stopped working. There was a static feeling in the air and an odd absolute silence. The closer the men got, the more they realized it wasn't ours. Peniston was drawn in and touched the craft, instantly electrocuting him and apparently downloading him with odd symbols and star system maps before the craft then blasted off. 24 hours after, the craft returned and Deputy Commander Charles Halt is now witness in the exact same spot. The trees, petrified. The ground, radioactive. And there are 3 large landing holes in the grass. Years later, Burroughs and Peniston still continuously ask the British government for their medical records from that night that they never received. Almost 32 years later and still nothing. Creepy. Number 4. Zimbabwe children. In 1996, a mass sighting was witnessed by an entire school in broad daylight in Arua, Zimbabwe, Africa. More than 150 students and staff were present. There have been tons of documentaries surrounding this case. Face to face, arm's length with the craft and beings, the children, who are now mostly in their 30s and 40s, are still convinced. More than 100 students can still remember what they claim to be telepathic warnings from the creatures surrounding our use of technology and the hazards it has on our planet. Drawings, first-hand interviews, and the weirdest part, all the same story. Same description of the craft, same description of the beings. Director and writer James Fox documents this infamous interaction in his 2020 documentary called The Phenomenon. If you haven't seen this, check it out. I'm telling you, it's worth it. Number 3. Skinwalker Ranch. 500 acres on this land in Ballard, Utah, the most bizarre spot on Earth. Skinwalker, getting its name from the first Navajo people's word for an evil spirit that inhabits the human form. The reports start in the 30s with the Myers, then the Shermans in the 90s. Then, Robert Bigelow, creator of Bigelow Aerospace, purchases the ranch for the development of UAP and consciousness research with the Advanced Aerial Threat Identification Program, or also known as ATIP. Gifted a budget to conduct research, this is where it starts getting weird. 2013 UAP researcher Brandon Fugel then buys the ranch from Bigelow, and History Channel's team of the Skinwalker Ranch series, an entirety of a crew of about 160 people, remain there to this day, conducting experiments and living on the land. Some examples of reports are hundreds of unexplainable cow mutilations, flying discs, orbs, ghosts, Bigfoots, and of course, a giant pulsing magnetic signature buried under the mountain. That's horrifying. Number 2. The O'Hare Airport. The O'Hare Airport incident happened at approximately 4:15 p.m. broad daylight on November 7, 2006. Chicago O'Hare International Airport receives a report that a group of 12 airport employees were witnessing a metallic saucer-shaped craft hovering still over gate C-17. The object was spotted by a ramp employee first, then it was witnessed by pilots, then airline management, and numerous mechanics simultaneously. No air traffic controller saw the object on radar. A completely silent 7-meter dark gray saucer sits. Several witnesses outside the airport also saw the object, ringing up local police and reporting numerous phone-ins describing a disc craft hovering over the airport for numerous minutes without moving. According to another witness, the object then shot straight up through the clouds at high velocity, leaving a clear blue hole in the clouds. According to the Chicago Tribune the next day, the disc was visible for over 5 minutes and was seen by dozens of airport personnel. And coming in at number 1, we have the Tic Tac. November 14th, 2004, 100 miles southwest of San Diego, California, the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group, which included the nuclear-powered carrier and missile cruiser the USS Princeton, were conducting a series of drills in the Persian Gulf. Around 2 p.m., 2 FA-18 Super Hornet fighter jets from the Nimitz received an unusual ask to help with a real-time world mission. The Princeton's radar, which had been picking up objects for several days. The Princeton's senior radar screen showed over 100 UAPs in just that week alone buzzing the ships. When noticed one of the objects was flying about 50 meters above the water, Commander David Fravor and the Black Aces Squadron described it as about 40 feet long, shaped like a tic-tac candy with zero means of propulsion. Fravor decided to intercept the object at this point, and the object started copying the jet's maneuvers. Impossible by physics standards today. After engaging the UAPs, they vanished, and the strike group remained active, confused, and awaiting disclosure. Yeah, I'd say this encounter is the absolute best proof we have to this day. What do you think?
Number 10, Flat Earth. Oh baby, it's bizarre, alright. Listen, I'm not gonna pretend to be a scientist or anything because, well, truth be told, I'm the farthest thing from it. Really, if you looked at it, I'm nowhere close to a scientist. My science education goes about as far as high school, and even that's debatable because the teacher who was, well, teaching me chemistry was a newfie. Nicest guy on planet Earth, but I have no idea what the hell he was talking about half the time. Literally, I have no idea. But I learned enough to get by, so I can more than confidently tell you that the Earth is in fact not flat. That's right, not flat. There is no ice wall, there is no global conspiracy of all the world's nations. While we could probably agree that the government or everyone's governments are hiding something, it most certainly isn't the knowledge that the Earth is flat. They're definitely not hiding that. That's not what they're hiding. Lastly, if Earth is flat, then why are the other planets, moons, and other celestial bodies in our solar system round or spherical? We're flat, but everyone else is round and spherical? That just don't make any sense, partner. Number 9, Operation Paperclip. At the end of World War II, Americans were strolling through Germany one day and saw some really cool stuff. V2 rockets, to be specific. Ooh, cool. And they said to themselves, ooh, yes please, I would like some of those for myself and the rest of America, thank you. So they rounded up some not so nice gentlemen who were in a lot of hot water and brought them back to America where, well, they helped develop military technology, but more importantly, rocket technology. This was all thought to be a crazy story, but it turns out to be true. Who would have thought? All about space. Like Werner von Braun, for example. Not so nice German guy, but was keen helping NASA develop rocket technology that got us to the moon. Yeah, he did. That's how it happened. That's life. Operation Paperclip. Number 8, Venus and Earth. Venus and Earth are both very close in size and mass. They also are made up of the same composition, not to mention that we're neighboring planets. It's pretty cool. But if you haven't noticed, one planet is full of life, water, oceans, and has McDonald's. The other is a galactic wasteland with an atmosphere 100 times thicker than Earth, and it rains sulfuric acid on a hellish landscape below. Also, no McDonald's. I think that's my indicator for like a planet. No McDonald's? I'm not going. The running theory is that Venus used to be a sister planet to Earth, or just like Earth, and may have supported life with oceans and all the beautiful stuff we have. However, whether it was the inhabitants of Venus or a natural disaster, she is no more. So the theory is there was something there, now there's not. Strange. Yeah, that's strange. Number 7, white holes. Black holes are those magnificent space holes with a gravitational pull so powerful that even light can't escape its grasp once it passes the point of no return called the event horizon. We're not sure if there is a yin to the yang of a black hole, but there's a theory that white holes exist. Get your mind out of the gutter. Okay, so if a black hole sucks everything in at the event horizon, then perhaps a white hole would push everything away. Pretty cool to think, right? While there isn't much evidence to support this, I would like to personally offer the scientific community my theory, because it's chetty. What if the Big Bang was created by a white hole, meaning the earliest of the universe's expansion could have been done by a white hole? Something to think about. You're welcome, science community. Just doing my part. Number 6, the Fermi Paradox. In a nutshell, the Fermi Paradox states that the known universe is massive. It gets bigger each day. With all those millions and billions of stars and planets out there, you'd think someone would have come by in their flying saucer and said, hello. Well, that may not be the case because, well, we may be it. Personally, I believe there is life somewhere out there, but somewhere is really far away. It's so far, too far to even think about. It really hurts to think about how far away it is. But the Fermi Paradox argues that it would have happened by now, and the fact that it hasn't solidifies the scary and cold truth that we might be the only living and thinking creatures in a deep, dark, infinite void known as space. Man, that's heavy. Number 5, Planet X. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and sometimes Pluto. Depends if Neil deGrasse Tyson's in the room. He's not too cool about that one. He doesn't like that one. That's our little slice of cosmic life in the Milky Way galaxy. However, some scientists believe that there may be another large planet hiding out in the sun's orbit. Planet X, as it's been known to be called. Some think it's so large and mysterious that it has its gravitational effects even here on Earth, which is crazy because it's so far away. However, due to the theory stating its long orbit, we haven't seen it yet, or, you know, it's not there to begin with. There's also that possibility as well. Yes, it's fascinating, but we know that there's other planets beyond our solar system, so it could be there. It's just really amazing to think about. Man, I love space. I love space stuff. Number 4, the moon landing. There are some out there who claim the moon landing never happened. It was faked, not real. It was a fugazi, says a guy with a tinfoil hat on his head drinking Mountain Dew in his mother's basement. While the folks who wear tinfoil have a point, there There's tons of shady stuff surrounding the moon landing. There is, it's crazy. Especially to the average folks like you and me, it doesn't really add up. Missing recordings, footage being altered, light sources not matching up, and some claiming it was even done in a studio, which, hey, there's lots of magic done in the studio, like me right here, right now. Yeah. And one of their biggest claims to fame, or their big point, is that they never went back, which, well, that's just not true, because 24 US astronauts have been to the moon, 12 of which of those astronauts got to walk on the surface. The truth of the matter is, once you go up and pick up a few rocks, well, just not that special. It's little rocks on a big rock. Plus, with gas prices these days, can you imagine what it costs to fill up a booster rocket with space juice? Who's gonna front that bill? You guys gonna front that? I don't think so, man. That's too much money. Oh, hurts to think about. My wallet. Number 3, the multiverse. Ever been at the fork of the road and had to make a decision? Well, what if I told you every time you make a choice, you unknowingly create an alternate universe where you made the other choice? While this is just some mind-bending fun to think about by the campfire with your friends, it is actually a hypothesis that multiple universes exist just like in the Marvel movies. Pretty close, actually. Let's take one universe where there is Avengers, one where Thor isn't a gorgeous actor from down under, and maybe there's a universe where I'm good at math. Oh, I'd like to go to that one. That'd be kind of cool. I mean, who really knows? I don't. I wish I was good at math. I'd explain the quantum physics of it, but that's a job for smart me in another universe. You know what? It's probably universe 3.14 because of pi and math. That's smart. That's cute. Number 2, Roswell, New Mexico. Roswell, New Mexico, 1947. A UFO crash lands in the desert. Government agencies and the military quickly try to cover up what's happened. The crash debris is taken to Area 51 just to make a good story, and for years people claimed it was little green men and were being tested on at Area 51. What? Yeah, so much so that Roswell, New Mexico has now adopted aliens as their own identity. Pretty cool. And the conspiracy, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, sure. However, many years later it was declassified that it was actually just a weather balloon and it was nothing to be thought of that much, and they're just kind of crazy. Although, that's what the government would want you to think though, isn't it? Oh, sure. Number 1, nature finds a way. Okay, this one is cool. So basically, we're all made of the same stuff. No matter which way you look at it, we're all made of star stuff. And if the conditions on another planet were similar to ours, then there's quite the chance, or the probability, that nature would find a way. What do I mean by that? Well, it means that life would most likely be similar on other planets like ours, and not weird tentacle monsters with green skin and weirdos like, well, like we think aliens are. So that means if a deer on this planet is a deer, that means a deer on another planet could be very similar to a deer, or at least maybe even the same. Oh man, life always finds a way. That's crazy. That's insane. That's a crazy theory. You could run into other us. Wow.
Number 10, Edgar Mitchell. Edgar Dean Mitchell was a US Navy officer, aviator, test pilot, engineer, NASA astronaut, and of course, ufologist. Ufology is the pseudo term for somebody who studies UFOs. I don't think there's like a degree you can just get that in. If so, where? I'm signing up. Just needed a name for it, I guess? I don't know. The lunar module pilot of Apollo 14 in 1971, guy clocked 9 hours working on the moon. He was the 6th person to walk on the moon as well. Mitchell publicly expressed his opinions that he was sure that there were thousands of UFOs recorded since the early 1940s, apparently belonging to other planets. Thousands of them. NBC conducted an interview in 1996. He talked about meeting with officials from 3 different countries who said that they had met ETs in person. Quote, "The evidence for alien contact is very strong and classified by governments who are covering up visitations and the existence of alien bodies, specifically in places like Roswell, New Mexico." Sorry, do you mind if I just see his credentials one more time? Thank you so much. Number 9. Al Worden. American test pilot, engineer, and NASA astronaut Alfred Merrill Worden. The pilot for the Apollo 15 lunar missions in 1971. One of the 24 people that have gone to the moon. Woohoo! He orbited it 74 times. Well, he was the first to even drive a moon car. Worden remained at NASA until 1975. And then it gets a little weird. Recently, on a morning show, they asked Worden, "Why do we keep going back to the moon?" He paused and said, quote, "Survival. Survival of our species." When pressed on aliens, he said, "You know, we are the aliens, right? We just think there's somebody else. We're the ones who came from somewhere else because somebody else had to survive. They got in a little spacecraft and they came here and they landed and they started civilization here. And if you don't believe me, go get books on the ancient Sumerians and see what they have to say about it." End quote. Yeah, that's not terrifying at all, Al. Number 8. James McDivitt. James Alton McDivitt is an American test pilot, Air Force pilot, engineer, and NASA astronaut who flew both in the Gemini and Apollo programs. McDivitt was selected by NASA for the Gemini 4 mission, and in 1965, he saw, filmed, and photographed an object, which approached the Gemini 4 as they were orbiting Earth over Hawaii. Apparently, the UFO had a long arm sticking out of it. Quote, "I was flying with Ed, he was sleeping, we were drifting, when suddenly an object appeared in the window. A cylindrical object, white." The film was then sent back to NASA and reviewed by NASA film technicians in 1975. It looked like a white beer can with a pencil sticking out of it. Yeah, he tried for years to get the word out about the phenomenon, but NASA lost those pictures apparently. Oh, that James, he's a crazy one up there in space with all those degrees he has. What a wacko. Number 7. Dark Side of the Moon. Not just an absolute banger of an album, also one of the most terrifying mysterious places in our galaxy. The dark side of our moon. Since the 1950s, NASA has seen and heard some pretty weird stuff back there. See, once you sign that non-disclosure, they kinda own ya, you know? Despite what you may have heard, it's true that the Apollo 10 astronauts did hear some interesting sounds behind the moon, described as outer space type music. Audio recordings from the Apollo 10 mission, astronaut Gene Cernan asks John Young if he hears that. Gene calls it music and says it even sounds outer spacey sounding. Young says, "We're gonna have to find out about that, because nobody's gonna believe us." Hey man, no one believes anyone who's gone up there, so don't take it personally. Astronauts go through visual and audio testing like the Navy SEALs. They know what they're doing. If they say Angel by Shaggy is playing back there, I'm believing them. Number 6. Leland Melvin. American engineer and NASA astronaut on board the space shuttle Atlantis, selected by NASA in 1998. This guy's put in time with mission after mission. Melvin has over 565 hours in space. Quite the practice at the whole floating around thing, I'd say. When Leland then was pressed about otherworldly visitors, he said he had seen something translucent, curved, and organic looking when he was working with fellow astronaut Randy Bresnik. The pair called the ground to ask NASA what it could be, and NASA's response was, probably ice, probably ice. Nice and scientific, Houston. Thanks for that. Mr. Melvin dismissed this and figured it was just NASA's explanation to cover it up. Like, who's more qualified here? That's all I'm asking. When the most qualified people are like, yeah, I can't tell if that's frozen water or a spaceship. Either they shouldn't be up there at all, or they need some more Windex on those windows, NASA. Number 5. Ivan Wagner. Astronaut Ivan Wagner was on the ISS as a first-timer in 2020. You think they do trades initiations to the rookies up there? Like no gravity and buckle you when you sleep? What do you think? He and fellow Russian Anatoly Ivashinin are working with Chris Cassidy up there, the American commander of said expedition. Wagner was then orbiting the Earth and might have actually captured footage of UFOs, better known now as UAPs. The aurora lights behind Earth's beautiful curves was being recorded, and it was seen. He labeled the video Space Guests. Wagner then tweeted the vid, the Aurora Australis near Antarctica and Australia, and then this blob of organized lights shows up. Of course, NASA didn't follow up. Like, what are they gonna say? Yeah, that's swamp gas, birds, balloon, grass, cars, something up there. I don't know. Cut the feed. Cut the feed. Number 4, moonwalk. Yeah, so apparently the footage our parents and also 650 million people across the globe watched in 1969 was not the original footage. Hold up, what? Yeah, apparently what everyone saw on every television set across the globe wasn't as 4K as NASA's end. A man by the name of Gary George came across some very, very old tapes that might be proof as to what NASA sees and what they hear on their end. It's a little different than what we see. Gary George bought 218 surplus government tapes, 3 reels labeled Apollo 11 EVA. He auctioned them at Sotheby's, first generation of the moonwalk. So hold on. NASA just had a clearer copy of this the whole time? I get it, maybe they had a bigger budget. I'm thinking so we can't see what's in the background, or what's flying in the background, or any stars in the background. Yeah, I just wonder how long it's gonna take before Robert Bigelow or Tom DeLonge get their hands on that. Hey mom, there's something in the background, guys, pay attention. Number 3, Gordon Cooper. Leroy Gordon Cooper Jr. was an American engineer, test pilot, US Air Force pilot, and the youngest of the 7 original astronauts in Project Mercury. You know the pictures, it's the old school tinfoil suits. 1963, Cooper piloted the longest and last Mercury spaceflight, Mercury Atlas 9. 34 hours in space. the first American to spend an entire day in space, the first to sleep in space, and in Cooper's autobiography, Leap of Faith, he recounted his relationship with the Air Force and NASA and their relationship to the UFO conspiracy. Cooper claimed to see his first UFO while flying over Germany. He said that there were hundreds of reports made by pilots, many coming from military on radar. In 1978, he even testified before the United Nations on the topic. Radar operators, fighter pilots, fellow astronauts. He was a strong advocate for disclosure up until his passing. Number 2. Lost in space. During the 60s, the space race was on between the Americans and the Russians. Like a good old hockey game, huh? Those two, always at it. The first to figure out what it is to put something or someone up in a little metal box. It was actually the Soviets that secured many of the early victories. While NASA's efforts were widely publicized, of course, sometimes the Soviets made it a point to never announce a mission until days after it was completed, and of course, successful. This allowed them to maintain control over information. Enter stage right, the Giudica Cordiglia brothers from Italy. Former amateur radio operators who apparently caught Russian audio recordings which allegedly proves the Soviets covered up cosmonauts' failed missions in the early 1960s. Apparently she's saying, "Help, help, I feel hot, am I going to crash?" That is absolutely horrifying. If this is the real deal and the Soviets sent a woman into space that maybe didn't come back, this proves that whatever happens in space, stays in space. We're only told what we're supposed to hear. Number 1. Buzz Aldrin. American astronaut, engineer, fighter pilot with a Doctor of Science in astronautics. This guy is overqualified. 3 spacewalks in 1966, Gemini 12 mission. As the lunar module Eagle pilot on the 1969 Apollo 11 mission, he and mission commander Neil Armstrong were the first 2 to land on the moon. There was something out there, close enough to be observed, and what it could be, according to Aldrin on Apollo 11 to the moon, he observed a light out of the window that appeared to be moving alongside them. But what could it have been other than another spacecraft from another country, or maybe even another world? It was either the rocket that had separated from us, or the 4 panels that moved away when we extracted the lander. After he returned home from his missions, he was convinced that he saw aliens while he was out there. Credentials aside, Guy took a lie detector test, which he passed with flying colors. In an interview with C-SPAN, Buzz talked about the future potential of the Earth's moon for humanity. He added a little extra info that might have ignited the spark to go back, regarding a certain monolith on the moon. Quote, "Visit the moon Phobos of Mars. There's a monolith there, a very unusual structure on this little potato object that goes around the moon once every 7 hours. When people find out about that, they're gonna say, 'Who put that there?' Yeah, I'll be the first one, Buzz. Who did put that there?"
Kicking off our list at number 10, Plasma Shield. You'll need your tinfoil hats for this entire video. I'll just start by saying that. Thumbs up and the tinfoil hats, both equally as important. Billions of miles from the center of our solar system, there's a wall. Big Game of Thrones space wall. Beyond this wall, what's over there? We have no idea, really. It's like the boundaries of an old video game. It's just blurry and it's mysterious. There's some sort of energy that protects us from deep space radiation. There has to be, and when NASA's twin Voyager probes passed through this exact region only 3 years ago, astronomers saw that the heliopause is a physical wall of plasma that deflects away the worst radiation in the cosmos. So yeah, a big gooey wall is protecting us from aliens and radiation. That's pretty cool. It's not a hypothetical anymore. The Voyager passed by recently. The shield may actually deflect about 70% of cosmic rays from entering our own solar system. I can't even comprehend the size here. That's just the start too. We're only finding out more things. James Webb is here to fuck shit up. Number 9, dead planets. When a star runs out of fuel, it can become a white dwarf. It's the skeleton of a star, essentially. Any planet that's orbiting that star at that point, it's toast. It's probably gonna get wiped out in the final growth spurt of the star. We expect this exact scenario to happen to us here on Earth. We're going to get swallowed by our expanding sun. Yeah, spoilers. Sorry. Either that or its intense gravity would pull us all into our own hot demise. Both pretty bad, but also pretty quick. Only a couple years ago, astronomers discovered an intact planet still orbiting a white dwarf star for the first time ever. This was impossible up until this point. This odd orbit sits 2,040 light years from us here on Earth, and the white dwarf system has its own Neptune-like planet that is slowly evaporating. It's disappearing every 10 days. That's a full orbit over there, just 10 days. Yeah, Happy New Year's, good game. Also, we're disappearing. That's lovely. It's depressing, but this brings light a new theory, that dead stars can actually host planets, even if it's only for a short amount of time. And then, it evaporates us and swallows us whole and burns us. Well, one of the three. It's all gonna suck. Number 8, solar tsunami. I've seen this one here on Reddit a few times, and it's baffling each and every time. Some folk on Reddit actually believe that shadow beings live in the sun, and that this is actually footage of an alien leaving our sun. Solar flares look odd, but I don't think that it's a quick pit stop for aliens. I'm not totally convinced either way. I don't know. In February 2019, researchers described a solar phenomenon called Terminator events, which, first of all, jarring name, Terminator, okay? These Terminator events are massive magnetic field collisions at the sun's equator. Now, subsequently, these collisions result in twin tsunamis of plasma tearing across the star's surface. It travels at 1,000 feet per second. It's pretty fast. It's kind of like the tsunami scene from Interstellar, only way worse. Totally way worse. Solar tsunamis could last for weeks at a time and may occur once a decade, so keep your eyes peeled. No, actually don't look at the star. Don't look at any star, ever for that matter. Especially not ours, or you'll go blind. Number 7, lost habitable worlds. Remember back in 2020 when we casually discovered phosphine on Venus? Yeah, in the middle of 2020 of all time, data from 40 years ago resurfaced, and it was documents from an old NASA mission where they may have overlooked this phosphine for the entire time. Yeah, whoops, didn't see that sign of life there for 40 years. Found it, let's talk. Yeah, this compound of phosphorus and hydrogen, this is eye-opening. So what's next? Well, NASA is interested, to say the least. They're currently preparing to launch 2 new missions to Venus to check this out. This is part of NASA's Discovery program that they're launching in 2030, so we still got a little bit of time. The Da Vinci Plus and the Verida S. Now the first one is a deep atmosphere Venus investigation of noble gases, chemistry, and imaging. Kind of a mouthful, but that's why we say Da Vinci. There we go. Then the second one, the second drone, will map Venus' surface and study its geologic history and hopefully get an understanding as to what happened to such a lost habitable world. Yeah, maybe there's humans there. Maybe we got old and we died, and then we came here. Oh, number 6, carbon on Mars. It's one thing to have Elon tweeting about going to Mars, but when NASA talks about it, it's interesting. I get an eerie feeling. I'm like, oh, I kind of believe this a little bit more. Elon's Twitter is a little off the chain, so more than fair. They're old school, you know what I mean? They're like, we may have found carbon 40 years ago. Stay tuned. Papers everywhere. It's so NASA to have papers all over the place when you discover something. Well, in 2022, quite recent, just back in January, NASA's Curiosity rover measured carbon signatures on Mars. And we got Venus, we got Mars. What's next? Earth? Yeah, gotcha. Paul Mahaffey, principal investigator of the sample analysis over at Mars, he says, quote, "We're finding things on Mars that are tantalizingly interesting, but we would really need more evidence to say we've identified life." Okay, so we're close. We're definitely close. We need more evidence, not all the evidence. We just need a little bit more. And then we're finding aliens up on Mars, the big red planet. Imagine going to Mars with Elon Musk. Like imagine like winning a trip and that's what you get. I would pay millions of dollars to not do that. How does that sound? Number 5, asteroid redirection. This one happened like a week ago and it snuck up on all of us. It has Michael Bay written all over it. I was pretty excited for this project, I'm not gonna lie. NASA landing a craft onto a moving asteroid is one thing, but their asteroid redirection mission was next level. Their plan was for NASA to catch an asteroid using hypothetically a large space inflatable. And no, I'm not joking. And then they would move said asteroid to the moon where it would orbit. Further studies. Yeah, we're just gonna adopt a rock and then have astronauts land on it and then study the moon. I don't think this is gonna happen, but just last week, NASA landed a craft onto an asteroid. They just blasted an asteroid, so ideally, down the line, if we need to, we can blow an asteroid that's coming towards Earth off its orbit, so it misses us. I don't know. That seems a bit more easy than a giant inflatable catching a rock and then letting it go over here. You know what I mean? Let's just blast the thing. I'm on board with NASA. Number 4, the second shortest spacewalk. Luca Parmentano, an Italian astronaut with the European Space Agency, faced what's possibly my new worst fear. I can't imagine anything worse than this. Here we go. It was July 16th, 2013. During a spacewalk on the 36th expedition to the ISS, Luca's helmet began to fill with liquid. Not water, but even worse. It started to fill with liquid coolant. Yeah, 0G coolant floating around inside of your mask. That's horrible. Water would be bad. Coolant, you don't want to breathe or drink this in. It's all bad. But being in space, that's a bit unpredictable, you know what I mean? The spacewalk continued for over an hour before Luca was back in the ISS and free from his suit of doom. He was fine, but this accident could have been a lot worse. The second shortest spacewalk in the station's history. Yeah, more than fair. Imagine drowning in like 0G. Horrible. Number 3, Apollo 13. April 11th, 1970. Apollo 13 was heading for the moon. Now on board the ship was astronauts James Lovell, John Swigert, and Fred Hayes. 56 hours after takeoff, there was an explosion that damaged the shuttle drastically. Every system to keep the astronauts alive and well were all of a sudden no longer operational, and yes, they were all in space heading towards the moon, so worst scenario possible. The second oxygen tank thermostat had been damaged before the actual launch, and since it blasted off, these astronauts had little to no chance of ever coming home. There's actually a movie about this whole thing, and it's wild. You have to watch it. It's a Tom Hanks classic. No spoilers, but incoming spoilers. Their power supply, water, oxygen, heat, and light all cut off. They had lost over 30 pounds combined. It was horrible. It was just quite the event. The people at NASA's Mission Control Center had to get these guys home and do months work of calculations in only days. Instead of going to the moon, they figured a way to use its pull and then return home as quickly and as safely as possible. So they did a little moon flyby. Said, oh, would be nice, see ya. Then they flew back, terrified this whole time, and then went back to Earth. Number 2, space animals. We often remember Laika, the space dog, and her 103-minute cosmic journey aboard Sputnik 2, but does anybody remember Able and Baker? Why are we talking about these two? This was the American version of Laika. This was less than 2 years later, so it wasn't the first animal, so, you know, maybe that's why we don't talk about it. But it was 2 years later, May 28th, 1959. The United States launched a female rhesus monkey named Able and a female squirrel monkey named Baker. They launched them both into space. Now this mission only lasted 15 minutes and they both safely returned back home, which is great. You're probably all curious what happened right off the bat. The monkeys weren't injured from their trip, or so they say, although they were whipping through space at 10,000 miles an hour. I highly don't believe that. This was 1959. This was when space travel became the real deal. The impossible became possible. And it was all because of these animals right here. Able sadly passed away after the flight in, normal ways, nothing to do with the actual flight itself. Meanwhile, Baker, she got famous. She was getting 150 letters a day. I'm talking fan mail. These ladies are icons, okay? Never mind Laika. Laika's time's over, okay? We get it. It was rough. We like it. Dog puns. That's why we're here. Hit that thumbs up for dog puns and also animals in space. Number 1, Runaway Bride. Back in September 2019, a star was detected at impossible speeds. It was just whipping through the cosmos. It was the fastest renegade star ever recorded so far. Hey, you wanna know how fast we were going? It was fleeing across the Milky Way at 1.2 million miles per hour. I'm trying to imagine that and I can't. Where did this even come from? Well, most of the time, these speeds come right after a supernova explosion, but after tracking the star's velocity and trajectory and going, it came from there, researchers figured out where it came from. It came from a black hole that's massive. It's hundreds of thousands of times the mass of our own sun, and this star just got completely sucked in and then launched out at unimaginable speeds. That thing, like, is this gonna hit us? How many more are out there? This is so scary. I'm gonna get out of here right now. I'm feeling a little hot with all these lights. I'm a little scared. Now I'm thinking about space and now I'm anxious.
Number 10. Tic Tacs. Ah yes, the classic declassified Tic Tac shaped UAPs. That's a mouthful, dude. Scrambling destroyers, flying jets over the oceans circa 2004, we know about these things, right? Disclosure happened, people. Let's get up to speed here. I mean, look at the formations alone. The choreography is beautiful. These aliens are some good drivers, huh? Are these things drones? I feel like we just figured drones out like in the last 20 years. Some of these videos are from like the 1700s, so like, what the hell's going on here? What are they doing over the water too? We haven't explored what, like 80% of our oceans? I say we get some GoPros down there, huh? A little drain the ocean action? There's gotta be like some sort of octopus species that likes free diving or snorkeling or something, Trans-medium vehicles, people. Write that down.
Number 9. Parked alien. Okay, when I first opened this link, I jumped. So just a heads up, you got a creepy alien face coming in 3, 2, 1. Bah, there it is. It's silly, it's scary. I'm not really sure how I feel about this one, but either way, it definitely looks real. Reddit users claim since this photo hasn't been fully debunked, it can still be held up for debate. Fair. They're like, well, it's not real. We're like, I guess, sure. A common argument is, where's the prop then, okay? Where's the material that made this exact alien suit? This looks better than today's CGI. Let's just use that from now on in movies. This reminds me of the alien from Signs, that birthday party scene alone. That could have been number 1. That was some, me up for like 8 years straight, for sure.
Number 8, metal Maltesers. So this metallic floating bowling ball was just recorded in Perm, Russia. Yeah, giant metallic balls like this have been found literally littered all around the planet for decades, apparently. Most famously, ufologist Gary Nolan is currently now studying these metal Malteser looking things that people have collected over the years. Right now in Texas, there's a dude, nameless, who has a ton of these apparently. Jim Marlin, famous music producer, I guess named, was given these metal giant pinball spheres by a celebrity's bodyguard apparently, who said that they were dropped off from a craft in his backyard years ago. And like, a lot of these celebs have actually touched these things. Dennis Hopper, Jane Fonda, these things are famous like on their own. They also move on their own and apparently hold power and light up once in a while on their own. Like, that's not scary at all. Hey dad, yeah, your giant metal balls are floating again. And can you tape Survivor? It's the finale tonight.
Number 7. Tom DeLonge Instagram post. Yeah, Blink-182. I can confidently say that the three of us in this room right now are Blink-182 fans, right? Obviously. I remember enjoying their songs. Aliens Exist. That one slapped right off the hop. But cut to 2022, former Blink member Tom DeLonge, he's now the co-founder of To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science. Yeah, he's into aliens in real life now, not just in music. And 25 days ago, Tom DeLonge posted what appears to be a photo of a real life alien. Says Tom DeLonge. So you can be the judge of that. Here we go. What do you think? I vote real. I don't know. I'm like 80-20. What do we think?
That's real.
That's real.
Number 6. Iron Man? Yeah, here, just for my sanity, we are all aware that not only do we have orbs, we have saucers, then triangles, and now Iron Man suits. Dude, this thing has a jetpack built into itself. That's gotta be Tony Stark. A silver saucer is scary enough, no? Imagine a little Jetson pod alien dude just hovering up to you on the side of a building. Like little escape pods. What is this, No Man's Sky? Like the dudes who commute to work on those one-wheel things in the bike lanes doing like Mach 12 with shoulder pads on? This is exactly where we're headed in like 15 years, aren't we? This thing just whips back and forth too. It makes me laugh so hard. Just the physicality alone, you know what I mean? Like he can't get it. He's just like left, my left, my left. Sorry, right, right, right.
Number 5. Driveway alien. Doorbell cam footage gave homeowner Vivian Gomez quite the shock on June 2nd, 2019. Yeah, she looked and saw maybe an alien. We're not sure yet. What is that? Is that a person? It's a thing? I have no idea. I also love how unsure he is at first, like which direction he's going. If that's an alien, he has no idea where he is. He just had a rough night. He's like left, right, either way. I'm pumped. Let's do it. Like he's like, yeah, eastbound, westbound. Where's my planet? Is it, this one. He's like dapping himself up on the way out. Whatever happened in that house, probably great. He probably got to like third base and he's like, he's ready, man. I don't know, fake or not, I hope aliens move like this. But he's got sea legs. He's not used to our gravity, clearly. He has no idea what he's doing. A little stronger than the moon.
Number 4. MUFON. Just shot over Houston, Texas. Dude, is this thing a giant floating Christmas tree ornament or a Halo ship? Cause like, what am I looking at here, you know? Dude, stuff like this freaks me out, cause like, as humans, we think we've seen everything and understand. And then you see like a new light up squid and you're like, oh, that makes my brain feel weird. Like when I don't know what I'm looking at and things are just like weird colors and different shapes, I just panic, you know? I feel like I'm losing grips on reality. Also, this thing is a MUFON case, which stands for Mutual Unidentified Flying Object Network. It's like 50 countries all working together, sending each other videos like this. It looks like some sort of glittery anomaly. See, I'm quick to say spaceship, but then again, I just saw Nope over the weekend and like, yeah, I don't really know anything anymore. This could be a creature or a body or a projection. It's 2022. I don't know.
Number 3, Dave Foley. Canadian comedy icon, Dave Foley. Yeah, we're talking about him for a little bit. Let's do it. So when the Kids in the Hall star took to Twitter only a couple of months ago, he caught the attention of all of his followers, including I, Mr. Alien Guy on YouTube. Foley tweeted, quote, "After years of interest in the UFOs without ever seeing anything, I saw something." Insane. I also imagine he tweeted this in his Bugs Life voice. That's just what I do for me personally. "This is a drawing of what I saw. I was with a friend who I'll let decide if he wants to be attached to this. It moved silently, at great speed, hovered, and pulsated with light." End quote. Now, this ship does look a lot like what we've seen in past reports, so who knows? Maybe Dave actually saw a UFO. Sorry, UAP. I have a big alien guy looking at me. He's like, it's UAP. I'm like, UAP, you got it. Sorry, man. That's old school. So who knows? Maybe he actually saw a real life entity. Maybe these aliens are fans of Bugs Life. Maybe they just loved Kids in the Hall. Maybe they wanted an autograph. I don't know.
Number 2, tea saucers. So apparently 2 of the editors from Titanic, have publicly made a comment saying that this video right here, if it was fake, would be very, very hard to do. They did the Titanic, dude. At first I was like, yeah, this is so fake. It looks like the intergalactic Beastie Boys music video. I was like, what? It looks so fake. It looks like the 1902 Trip to the Moon movie, like the black and white video. You know, the one with the guy's face in the moon is just like splat. Like the rocket ship crashes into his face. Like cheesy, right? Cheesy. Like a saucer on a string over a model building type thing cheesy. Nope. Apparently this one has experts stumped. Taken in 1997 in Las Lomas, Mexico. Always Mexico, dude. They have the craziest sightings. Look, it looks fake, but when people who edit stuff every day in the movies are like, yeah, we don't know how to do that yet. That's when it gets really scary.
Number 1, 2021 flyby. It's odd because we obviously joke and have a good time on this channel, especially when talking about aliens, of course. It's a nice change than, you know, King Henry and, you know, cutting heads off. It's nice. We like to take a break. But for our number 1 spot on today's list, look at me. Look how serious this guy is right now, right? I'm cocking my head to the left, I'm squinting at nothing. That's how you know it's real. I could tell anybody bad news with this face right here, and I'm here to tell you today on Bumblebee that we are not alone. Aliens do exist. They came out with this vertical portrait mode video. That's how you know it's real, when it's filmed like a World Star video. And the video itself is quite short, and that's because it's taken in the cockpit of a plane that is currently flying at high speeds, at very high altitudes. But it appears to be passing a metallic sphere. Yeah, this is what happens when a UAP enters restricted airspace. The pilot attempted to communicate a warning to said object, but of course, it was to no avail. I just said it was to no avail. That's how you know I'm being serious. There you go. These things are whipping through the air well beyond the speed of sound, yet there's no atmospheric disturbance, no sonic boom, no turbulence. Only questions.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have organic material. Just this morning, we received a huge announcement from NASA. Of course, many of us are at least in some way familiar with the Perseverance rover that is currently on Mars digging around in the soil. And recently, this rover has been searching at the site of an ancient river delta, trying to find any clues that might give us insight into the past lives of the planet. Well, that sweet little rover has made its most important discovery to date. A few recently collected samples have been confirmed to include organic matter. This means that the Jezero crater, which likely was once the home to a lake that the delta emptied into, well, it would have potentially had a habitable environment about 3.5 billion years ago. These organic molecules are supremely important because they represent the building blocks of life, like carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And while this discovery doesn't just flat out confirm the past existence of life on the planet, it is one of the strongest clues we've ever received, which is absolutely unbelievable. In our number 9 spot today, we have the mysterious beam. Before I dive into this one, guys, please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button if you're enjoying this video so far. It does really help us out. Pretty recently, scientists explained that they captured a mysterious beam of energy that was coming from the star that is the closest known star to the sun, Proxima Centauri. This star is small and low mass and is located about 4.2 light years away from us. The thing about this star is that it has one rocky exoplanet that is 17% larger than Earth in its habitable zone, which would make liquid water a possibility on the planet. This planet's habitability has been disputed throughout the years, but this signal could be a sign that it may be even more habitable than any of us know. Scientists explained that the signal shifted while it was being observed, which mimicked the shift caused by the movement of a planet. They're taking extra precautions to figure out what exactly caused this shift in case it was some sort of a mundane source, but it will of course take some time to figure out, but it's all very exciting. In our number 8 spot today, we have Europa. One of Jupiter's moons, called Europa, has a red tinge to it, and in 2001, NASA scientists revealed that it's possible that alien microbes might be responsible for this red color. The surface of this moon is mostly ice, but it has been shown that it reflects infrared radiation in a really bizarre way. This means that something is binding it together, but researchers haven't been able to come up with the correct combination of elements and compounds to make the data that they have make sense. There are some bacteria on Earth that can thrive in extreme conditions and that also have that red and brown color, which could potentially be responsible for the color on this moon. The surface temperature might be too cold for them to survive, but the warmer interior might be where they are located. Some geological activity on the moon could then push them closer to the surface, where they are then flash frozen in place. In our number 7 spot today, we have cyanobacteria. For around 2 decades, Dr. Richard Hoover has been studying meteorites that were found in Antarctica, and in 2011 he claimed that he and his team had found evidence of ancient bacteria from colonies that thrived on comets, moons, and other planets. The astrobiologist said they were able to make this discovery through the use of the most advanced microscanning technology in the entire world. Dr. Hoover sliced open these meteorites and discovered what they call the remains of cyanobacteria, also known as blue-green algae. This type of algae is said to have a unique quality and the ability to thrive even in some of the harshest conditions, which is necessary when talking about surviving the extreme environment that some other planets hold, as well as just space in general. Dr. Hoover said that while some of the bacteria he had found was similar to those on Earth, he also said that some of the others were completely alien. He said, quote, "Neither I nor other experts who have seen the evidence have any idea what these creatures might be. I believe these findings indicate that life is not restricted to Earth, but is broadly distributed, even outside our solar system." In our number 6 spot today, we have the radiation-proof bacteria. In 2002, Russian astrobiologists hypothesized that a bacteria here on Earth may have actually evolved on Mars. Deinococcus radiuranis is the most tough bacteria here on Earth. It can withstand even the most extreme conditions such as cold, dehydration, vacuum, and acid. But the craziest part is that it is virtually radiation proof. These little microbes can withstand several thousand times the amount of radiation a human can withstand, as well as more radiation than any other bacteria on Earth. You can even find this bacteria on the inside of a nuclear reactor. That's how radiation proof it is. Scientists did an experiment to see how quickly this bacteria could build up a stronger radiation resistance by zapping it with enough radiation to kill 99.9% of it, and then leaving the remaining 0.0% to repopulate before zapping it again and just repeating the process. It was concluded that it would have taken E. coli thousands and thousands of rounds to build up the same resistance that this hardy bacteria did in only 44 rounds. With this experiment, and based on the dose of radiation they gave each bacteria, it would take millions and millions of years to get even close to the amount of radiation they gave this bacteria in one cycle. Since Earth just doesn't carry that amount of radiation, it has led some scientists to speculate that since Mars is virtually now unprotected and receives extremely high amounts of radiation, these bacteria may have evolved on Mars and gained their resistance in just a few 100,000 years, and then they may have been flung off Mars by an asteroid and then brought to Earth on meteorites. In our number 5 spot today, we have Enceladus. Enceladus used to be thought of as basically just an icy snowball floating around in space, or as a small moon of Saturn with a diameter of 502 kilometers, but as it turns out, this small moon might hold some pretty amazing potential. It was discovered that this moon has hydrothermal processes going on underneath its crust. To us non-scientists, that means almost next to nothing, but what if I said that that means that it just might have all of the requirements for life, and that it is becoming a greater possibility that we might find microbial life there. Basically, this moon has an icy shell for a surface and then a rocky interior, but between these two layers is a warm ocean, and this ocean is where scientists think life is most likely to be. This discovery came almost accidentally when the Cassini orbiter arrived to Saturn in 2005, and it found water plumes shooting out of the cracks in the surface of this moon, which made scientists realize that it just may be geologically active. Through more research and by flying the orbiter through the water, by the time 2015 rolled around, scientists knew that it was holding all of the keys to life. While this little moon was never the original focus of research, it quickly took over with its incredibly exciting potential. In our number 4 spot today, we have light shifts. In the latter half of 2015, a Penn State astronomer named Jason Wright explained that there were pretty erratic and spontaneous shifts in light that was coming from a newly discovered star. The star sits about 1,280 light years away from us on Earth, and these shifts were very similar to as if something was passing in front of our view of the star briefly before passing through. Scientists weren't able to connect this to any exoplanets or anything like that, which we could understand, and this is what led Jason to quite quite an interesting theory. He stated that it is possible that the shifts are caused by massive objects passing in front of the star in a kind of orbit, like an array of massive satellites or a similar kind of structure, like the type of thing that would be produced by an intelligent and civilized life form. Again, like many things, it's just a theory, but a very compelling one at that. In our number 3 spot today, we have the UFO footage. Remember during the pandemic when there was that footage from the Navy that went viral where it captured some kind of UFO, but we didn't really have the time to freak out because we were all just like watching Tiger King and wondering what the hell was going on and when we could go outside again? Well, let's freak out about it now, because what the heck was captured on those videos? The US Navy released footage a few years ago where they had captured video of some sort of wingless aircraft that was traveling at hypersonic speeds. Of course, people are wary to believe that this is a true sign of alien life and alien visitors, but the thing is, we simply just don't really know what it is. We know it's not something that is known to us yet, so this definitely could be a sign of some sort of alien life. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But hey, if the Navy's worried, so am I. In our number 2 spot today, we have the bacterial experiment. On Earth, most living creatures require oxygen to live, but the problem with a lot of planets is that there's far more hydrogen and helium. Last year, scientists decided to take 2 different bacteria. One was E. coli, which can be found in the guts of humans, and ordinary yeast, which is used in things like bread and beer. With these 2 bacteria, they tried to see if they could live in different environments. When placed within flasks that contained either pure hydrogen or pure helium, they still managed to grow, just at a slower pace. This evidence goes to show that there might be living organisms that we haven't found yet because we are looking in the wrong places. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Venus cloud. Last year in September of 2020, astrobiologists everywhere were excited and skeptical of some new potential evidence that had been found in the upper clouds of Venus. Firstly, can we just take a second to really think about how cool of a job an astrobiologist has? Anyway, the new findings were pointing to the potential of the presence of phosphine in these clouds. Phosphine is rare and usually a poisonous gas that on Earth is basically always met with the presence of living organisms. Venus hasn't really been the top of the list of choices for finding potential life due to its surface temperature and pressure in the sulfuric acid clouds, but this evidence could prove to say something otherwise. 2 separate telescopes were able to pick up the signatures of phosphine in a cloud that had a similar temperature and pressure to Earth, and while this isn't concrete evidence of space bugs, it will at least be a reminder that we should continue looking for life even in the most unlikely places. And hey, maybe it is space bugs.